Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and good Shabbos. It is a beautiful evening here in Huntington. It was a nice day today. For the most part, a little bit of rain in the morning, but warm temperatures, the crocuses, and some other flowers that I can't identify. My father, blessed memory, was the one with the green thumb, but I do know crocuses. And so they're in bloom and they're very beautiful. I've seen some purple ones. I've seen some yellow ones. And I think I saw a white one or a couple of white ones. So so it's great. And a little bit of rain, but better than snow and ice, tell you that. All right, it is Friday evening and we are here to welcome Shabbat. And so we're going to begin. We're going to ask Sam, who's my tech guru as well. He's going to come up and light the Shabbos candles. He's going to bench licht for us. And the blessing is found on page 2.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words which will speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahalik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you, Sam. All right, let's continue on page 6, and let's read responsively in the middle of the page. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship.
May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, things to express, hopes to nurture.
May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity.
May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet.
May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness.
May the synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life.
All right, let's continue on page 20. With verses 1, 2, 8, and 9 of Lecha Dodi, a song that comes to us from the mystical city of Tzfat in the north of Israel, in an area called the Galil, which is one of the most beautiful places in the world. And Tzfat is a mystical city, the home of what we generally consider Kabbalah, what we generally consider mysticism now, had its origin in Tzfat from the Sephardic Jews who came after the expulsion of the Jews in 1492. A number of the great Mekubalim, the Kabbalists, wound up in Tzfat, and where they did their greatest work. And Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz gave us Lecha Dodi, which is part of the Kabbalat Shabbat service. And Kabbalat Shabbat comes from the mystics in Tzfat. They decided that moving from the work week right into Shabbat services wasn't a good idea, that we needed a chance to kind of ease our way in. And so they chose a number of psalms and composed a number of songs. And we ease our way into Shabbat with this. And so page 20, Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Ishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, L'shem ol tiferet v'litila, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela, likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor ha'bracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila, lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela, Yamin u'smol tifrotzi, V'et Adonai taritzi, Al yadish ben partzi, V'nismecha v'nagila, Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela, Bohi v'shalom ateret bala, Gam b'simcha uv'tzola, toch emunei am segula, Bohi chala, lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Let's turn to page 22, and let's read in English together verses from Psalm 92, which is also known as the Psalm for Shabbat. Let's read the first paragraph and then conclude with Tzaddik Tamar. A song for Shabbat. It is good to praise Adonai, to sing hymns to your name, O Most High, to proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night. With a 10-stringed harp, with voice and lyre together, you have gladdened me by your deeds, Adonai. I shout for joy at your handiwork. How great are your works, Adonai, how very subtle your designs. A brute cannot know, a fool cannot understand this. Tzaddik Tamar yifrach, Ke'erez balvanon yiskeh, shetulim beveit Adonai, bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu. O jenuvun b'seva, Deshenim vera'ananim yihiyu lehagid, Ki ashar Adonai tzuri velo havlatabo. Let's turn to page 24. And we'll conclude Kabbalah Shabbat by welcoming the angels who come to spend Shabbat with us. Page 24 at the top, Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mihi melech, malachei hamlachim hakadosh, baruch hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, malachei hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. Tzeitchem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mihi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. And we have completed Shabbat. We have eased ourselves into Shabbat, eased our way from the busy work day, the work week of creating, of carving out a spot in creation for ourselves. Now we can relax and rest for the day that is Shabbat. Page 145, we'll continue with Chatzi Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba v'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlik malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael bahagala u'v'zman kariv v'yimeru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam Olmei Almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitalev V'yitalal Shmei Dekudisha Brichu Le'la Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tush bechata v'nechemata da'amiram be'alma v'yimeru amen. The formal call to evening worship, page 146, Barach Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vayed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vayed. On page 147, let's read responsively. Adonai, your majesty is proclaimed by the marvels of earth and sky. Sun, moon, and stars testify to your power and wisdom.
Day follows day in endless succession, and the years vanish, but your sovereignty endures.
Though all things pass, let not your glory depart from us. Help us to become co-workers with you and endow our fleeting days with abiding worth. Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim. Top of page 148, Ahavat Olam. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amchavta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadita Al kein Adonai Eloheinu B'shochbeinu u'v'kumeinu Nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'v'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed. Ki heim chayenu, orech yameinu, v'orech yameinu. Uvahem nehege yomam v'layla, yomam v'layla. Ve'ahavat techal tasir mimenu li'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol lavavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha Hayom alvavecha, vishinantam levanecha, vidibarta bam, vishivtecha b'veitecha, uvlektecha v'derech, uvashokbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam liot al yadecha, v'hayu latotafot b'neinecha, uchtavtam, Al mezuzot beitecha ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Let's continue on page 151 in the middle, reading responsibly in English. We worship the power that unites the universe, a promise of harmony for all.
Yet that oneness eludes our grasp, as imperfection, evil abound.
Before our eyes, there is a vision of perfection, order, and goodness.
There is evil enough to break the heart, and there is good enough to exalt the soul.
When will redemption come?
When we grant everyone what we claim for ourselves.
Long ago, we escaped the tyranny of Egypt. Our people saw the power of the Most High.
We learned God's presence redeems time and event, so we celebrate this power that makes for freedom.
Top of page 152, Mi Chamocha. Mi Chamocha Bailim Adonai. Mi Chamocha Nedar Bakodesh. Nohora Tehilot Ohosefele. Malchutecha Ra'u Vanecha. Bokeyam Lifnei Moshe. Ze Eli Anu V'Amru Adonai Yimloch Leolam Va'ed V'Nemar Kifad Adonai Et Yaakov Ugalo Mi'ad Chazak Mimenu Baruch Atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Top of page 153, the top two lines of Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom V'ha'amidenu Shomreinu Lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom V'ha'amidenu Shomreinu Lechaim. And let's read together in English. Give us a place to rest, O God. Shelter us in the long, soft evening shadows of your truth. You are true protection and safety. In your presence we find love and acceptance. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. Top of page 154, Vishamru. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael, et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, לדורותם ברית עולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, Oti leolam v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash. Shabbat vayinafash. Shabbat vayinafash. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat. La'asot et ha-Shabbat Ledorotam berit olam. Well, friends, we've reached the centerpiece of the Friday night service, the Amidah. We're going to begin together on pages 155, 156, and 157. And then we're going to continue silently 158 through the end on 167. And you can chant along with us in the Hebrew, read along in the English, or offer up your own prayer at this time. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibor, Hanora, El Elyon, Komeh Chasadim Tovim, Vekoneh Hakol, Vezocher Chastei Avot Ve'imahot, Umevi Goel Livnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, V'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye Metim Atah Rab LaHoshia, Mashiv HaRuach, U'Morid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chayim B'Chesed, Mechaye Metim B'Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umechaye Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Baal Givurot, Umito Melach, Melech Memit Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'aman atal hachayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hametim. still completing your Amidah, please take your time and continue at your own pace. We're going to continue together in the middle of page 160 in English. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may we all live in such a way that this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. All right, let's turn to page 163. A little bit of hoda'ah, a little bit of gratitude. Every day we have new things to be grateful for, getting out of bed, being able to be with loved ones. This week I had the great opportunity to get my COVID vaccination, and I lucked out. I got the Johnson & Johnson, so it was one and done. So I didn't have to get a second one. So I feel grateful for being in a state that is getting the COVID vaccines out in a timely and a serious manner. And so I'm grateful for that this week. So let's continue on the top of page 163 responsively. For the good in us, which calls us to a better life, we give thanks.
For the strength to improve the world with our hearts and our hands, we offer praise.
For the desire in us, which leads us to work for peace, we are grateful.
For life and nature, harmony and beauty, for the hope of tomorrow, all praise to the source of being.
Top of page 164, we'll close out the Amidah with the prayer for peace. Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov benecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael bechol heit ubechol sha'a bishlomecha. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. And let's read responsively in English. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes.
Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of our world. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart.
Praised are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamivorech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. All right, let's jump ahead to page 253, the Mishaberach, the prayer for healing. If you know someone, or if you have someone in your life who needs extra healing this Shabbat, spiritual, physical, emotional, any kind of healing, keep them in your thoughts and close to your heart as we continue in the middle of the page. Mishaberach Avotenu Mikor habracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu Mekor habracha liavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. All right, friends, let's continue with the prayers for our community, for our congregation, for our country, and for Medinat Yisrael, and we'll read these together. Source of all being, may the children of this community learn these passions from us: love of Torah, devotion and prayer, and support of the needy. May we guide with integrity, and may our leadership be in your service. May those who teach and nourish us be blessed with satisfaction, and may we appreciate their time and their devotion. Bless us with the fruits of wisdom and understanding, and may our efforts bring fulfillment and joy. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadecha v'yirah na'avod. Thus says Adonai, this is what I desire, to unlock the fetters of wickedness and untie the cords of lawlessness, to let the oppressed go free, to break off every yoke. Share your bread with the hungry and take the wretched poor into your home. When you see the naked, give clothing, and do not ignore your own kin. If you banish the yoke from your midst, the menacing hand, the evil speech, if you offer compassion to the hungry and satisfy the famished creature, then your light shall shine in darkness. Avinu Shabashamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'Golo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Smichat Geulatenu, Hagein Aleha B'Evrat Chastecha, Ufros Aleha Sukat Shlomecha, Ushlach Orcha V'Amitecha L'Rashecha Sareha V'Yoetzeha, V'Takneim Be'etza Tova Milfanecha, V'Natata Shalom Ba'aretz, V'Simchat Olam V'Yoshveha, V'Nomar Amen. O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen. All right, friends, Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos. Last two portions of the book of Exodus, the last two portions of Shemot, Vayakel and Pekudei. That's it. And we're going to finish up the book of Exodus tomorrow. We would finish it up right in time for Rosh Chodesh, which starts on Sunday, Rosh Chodesh Nisan. But in the last two parshiot of Shemot, we're wrapping things up with the dedication, the building and the dedication of the temple, the Mishkan, or the Mikdash, which will later become the temple. Parshat Vayakel opens up with the command to observe Shabbat. Again, this is like the third time in the book of Exodus where we've learned or we've had a commandment about Shabbat, to observe it. And the emphasis on this one is that no work is to be done, right? And it's right next to more directions for building the tabernacle. And so the rabbis say that even if you're building God's dwelling place, Shabbat takes precedent. So you stop whatever you're doing on Friday afternoon when it's time to knock off for Shabbat. Even if you're building God's house, you stop and observe Shabbat. So Moshe once again asks, after this command for Shabbat, asks Bnei Yisrael to donate gifts. Again, gold, silver, and copper, precious stones, fine linen, wood, oil, spices for the building of the Mishkan. And two individuals. Last week I mentioned one, Betzalel, and he has an assistant, Oholiab. And these are skilled craftsmen who are going to oversee the construction of the Mikdash, the Mishkan, and report directly to Moses on that progress. And we find out that at this point, the children of Israel, Bnei Yisrael, are giving more gifts than are needed. And so Moshe has to tell them to stop. And he enlists other skilled craftsmen to work on the cloths, the planks, the bars, the curtains, the screens, the menorot, the candelabras, the altars, and the priestly garments. And so the Vayakel there's not a lot of action. The book of Exodus doesn't end with a lot of action, right? It really starts, it really ends with the getting ready to built with the building of the Mishkan. And so that Pekudei, the very last parsha of Exodus, describes the records kept of all the work and materials used, and it kept track of all the donations. It's just a parsha of record keeping. When the Mishkan is completed near the end of the parsha, Moshe and Bnei Yisrael celebrate by anointing it. Right, they consecrate it. They make it they infuse it with the sense of kedusha, of holiness, and God's presence fills the Mishkan and leads the people throughout their journeys. And so the book of Exodus, which began with us in slavery, ends with us building the Mishkan, that portable sanctuary that will house God's presence and will guide us through the Midbar, through the wilderness. And starting next week, we're going to pick up with the book of Vayikra, the book of Leviticus, and it's, it's a handbook for the priests. And we'll talk more about that next week. But there's not a lot of action that goes on. So we're going to take a pause. We're going to break, intermission, for those of you who have theater background, and we're going to look into another book. The climax, the building of the Mishkan, God's presence descending onto it, ends the first act. And the intermission is going to be Vayikra, Leviticus, and then we're going to pick up with the action again in a number of weeks with the book of Bamidbar. So that's our Torah portion, or portions, in a nutshell for this week. All right, last week was the first Shabbos of the month, and what I wanted to have was Ask the Rabbi, but we had Cantor Beth here, and she led us in song, so that was better than Ask the Rabbi. But this week we're going to do Ask the Rabbi, and I have a number of questions that I didn't get to yet, but if you have questions, please send them to me after Shabbos. Send them to my office email account, and I will, slowly work my way through your questions. It could be about anything about Judaism. Could be a long answer. Could be a long question, a short question, whatever. But for the last one, I got a question about intermarriage and the difficulties we face with intermarriage. But there was something I wanted to talk about before we talk about intermarriage. So I'm going to put intermarriage put it on hold, but talk about something that really plays into that idea of intermarriage. And believe it or not, you read a lot in the papers about identity politics. Well, in Judaism, we have the very same We have identity politics. And one of the identity politics buzzwords or traps or questions really is, who is a Jew? Right? And that's a big question, especially if you're in Israel, right? Who is a Jew? And it for 2,000 years, it was a very, very easy question to answer. Right? It was very, very easy to answer. But we're going to go back even further than 2,000 years. We're going to go back to the era of the patriarchs. We're going to go back to the biblical era, right? And identity politics was very simple, right? You were what your father was, right? So if your father was a member of the tribe, as it were, a member of Bnei Yisrael, then you were automatically a member of the tribe of Bnei Yisrael, and then you were part of a sub-tribe, right? One of the 12 tribes that made up the people. You would be then, if you were a man, if you were a male child, you would be of your father's tribe. So if my father came from, say, Asher, I would be born into the tribe of Asher, and that would be my lineage. Now, if I had a sister, right, things were a little bit different, right? She was still a member of Bnei Yisrael, and while she was unmarried, she was a member of Asher. But if she married somebody from outside the tribe, of, say, maybe she married a Gadite, or I just blanked on a Benjaminite, or she married a Reuvenite, right? And still within Bnei Yisrael, but a different tribe, she would then go to that tribe and become a member of that tribe. And so she would follow whatever customs or whatever they did in Binyamin, as opposed to what she grew up with in Asher. Right, so that's within the tribes. If, you know, I'm a grown man now, and I go out and I find a Canaanite woman, right? I'm sure that they were lovely Canaanite women. And even though I shouldn't be, but I decided I wanted to marry her, I brought her into Bnei Yisrael. I brought her into my tribe of Asher. She became an Asherite, right? There was no conversion process other than she had to learn the ways of the tribe. And she had to accept the ways, right? So it was very easy. Whatever your father was, you were. And if you were a woman, after your father, you became whatever your husband was. And so that was the idea. That was identity politics, right? It was very easy. You became a member of the tribe, and that lasted all the way through till the destruction of the Second Temple, and that's called Patrilineal Descent, right? What your father is, you are, and with the exception for women, right? But women could be assumed into the tribe, and even if they aren't a member of Bnei Yisrael. Remember the story of Ruth. Ruth was a Moabite, and she wanted to marry Boaz, and so they went through the process of her becoming part of Boaz's tribe, and she became she was King David's great grandmother, right? But there was no conversion process, right? So that's the key thing. You were just brought in. The post-Second Temple period is where things change, and the rabbis change it 180 degrees. They take it from being patriarchal or patrilineal and make it matrilineal. And now it's, if your mother's Jewish, doesn't matter what your father is, you're Jewish or a member of Bnei Yisrael. And this was done not because the rabbis thought, well, we're for equal rights, and, we think women are groovy, and, so we'll just change the whole system. They didn't do it because of that. They did it because of the Romans. The Romans were the ones who destroyed the Second Temple, and they literally crushed Israel and sent us into exile. And what the Romans used to do, they used to do a number of things to ensure that there would be no further rebellion. So one of the things they did is they would kill all of the men, or as many of the men as they could, of fighting age. Right? They would kill any men who could serve or were serving in the army. They would kill them. Then they would separate families. They would send some people to the north, some people to the west, some people to the east. Right? So they would break up families. They would break up groups so that no groups could come together and foment a rebellion. And then the next thing they did is they said, any child born to a Roman man is a Roman citizen. Doesn't matter who the mother is. And so these soldiers, after they conquer a country, they would pillage it and they would rape the women. And if they didn't kill the women after they raped them, they would certainly, just walk away. And these women were left, many of these women were left carrying children that were the children of Roman soldiers, and therefore Roman citizens. You could see how the rabbis would be worried about this, because the old way was if your father determined who you were. And so if your father was a Roman legionnaire, a Roman soldier, then Judaism is going to die, because the men are gone. There aren't enough men to repopulate Israel. There aren't enough men to repopulate the religion. So the rabbis very, very quickly decided, probably after some debate, but very, very forcefully decided that they were going to change it. The women were alive, and some of these women were pregnant. And so instead of saying it's patrilineal now, we're going to make it matrilineal. The mother determines who you are. And I think they did that for a couple of reasons. One, the women were still alive. Two, you always know who your mother is, right? I mean, a number of those children that would have been born after the destruction would have not known who their father was. Some Roman, right? But they would know their mother. And so the rabbis saved Judaism by doing away with patrilineal descent and introducing matrilineal descent. And so that lasted for almost 2,000 years, right? When Judaism was just Judaism, right? When there was no conservative reform, reconstructionist, Hasidic, when Judaism was just Judaism, that was the law. It was the mother. And that carried on for almost 2,000 years. Nobody raised an eyebrow to it. It was good. Or at least it was good for Judaism. But then, well, we started to assimilate. And it wasn't just in America that we started to assimilate. We started to assimilate once the Enlightenment happened in Western Europe. Right? If you study the history of German Jews in the 19th century, right, in the 1800s, the intermarriage rate in Germany was close to, I think, 60 or 70%. Right? So it wasn't something that when we started to assimilate in America, it was an American problem. This started in Germany. And so there was always debate going on. Well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do with intermarriage? Well, who's a Jew? Who's a Jew? And the rabbis were all unified in saying, if your mother is a Jew, you're a Jew. If your father is not a Jew, and your parents want to raise you as a Jew, there are ways that we can work we can work things out. And then in 1983, just 40 years ago, just almost 40 years ago, the reform movement in America changed the playing field. And they said, we are going to, because what they really wanted to do was establish the status of children of intermarried families. And what they came up with was equilineal descent. And how did that change the playing field? Well, the reform movement said, it doesn't matter. If your father's a Jew and your mother's not, you're a Jew, provided you're going to be raised as a Jew. If your mother's a Jew and your father's not, well, then there's no issue there because that's how it's always been. So what the Reform movement did in 1983 was, in a way, they did what they thought was best because of the amount of intermarriage. But they also, the movement also caused great consternation outside the movement because the Orthodox community and the conservative community, they don't view equilineal descent. Right? The conservative community is still, if your mother's a Jew, you're a Jew. The Orthodox and traditional communities, if your mother's a Jew, you're a Jew. If your father's not a Jew and your mother's a Jew, there are ways we can rectify that, but you're not automatically brought into the covenant. So what the Reform movement basically did was make Judaism a choice for people, made it a choice for families, right? It's no longer a given. You're born into a Jewish family, you're Jewish. Now there's the choice if you want to be Jewish because there are competing traditions. Now, it's not like that in all Reform families. It's not like that in all conservative families because there is a large number of conservative Jews who intermarry. But it opens up a Pandora's box, this decision in 1983, because who is a Jew? For 2,000 years, from the biblical period up until the Second Temple period, it was very clear and easy to determine. From the Second Temple period up through 1983, it was very easy to determine. And now it's less so. And believe me when I say that there are problems caused by this, not because I'm some sort of a Grinch, but because I've sat in my office in my 20 years as a rabbi and had to talk to people who grew up thinking they were Jews and they wanted to become part of the conservative movement, or they wanted to go to a conservative camp, a day camp, or they were thinking about going to rabbinical school. And halakhically, according to the tradition, they weren't Jewish. And so that's the kind of Pandora's box that was open, is that it made for some very difficult conversations that needed to be had. And we still have them, and people's feelings get hurt. And there are ways, there are creative ways where I have helped people and did what I could to make sure that they would be considered Jews outside of whatever little circle we were in. People who want to make Aliyah have to submit paperwork saying that they have a Jewish mother, or they converted, or they it's part of that tradition. So patrilineal descent to matrilineal descent to now the more liberal American Jewish communities, the Reform and the Reconstructionists have now this equilineal. The conservative movement still debates it. There are members in the conservative movement, rabbis and leaders, who think that we should follow suit with the Reform movement and allow for equilineal descent. Right now it's pretty much, leans fairly heavily towards those who say, no, we have to maintain the tradition. But 50 years ago, it leaned very heavily towards those who said gays and lesbians have no place in a synagogue. So there's always hope. And so, right, that's one of the things, and we'll talk about intermarriage at another time, but I wanted to talk about this just to lay the groundwork that the idea of who is a Jew, the waters get muddied, and it's still, our identity politics are complex, and we do what we can to make people feel welcome and good. And so I hope we can continue to do that. So that was this month's Ask the Rabbi. If you have questions, please send them to me. And now I have a question. I'm going to ask Sam. Sam, what time is it?
Kiddush.
It's Kiddush time. What would I do without Sam? I'm telling you. Last week, I almost forgot it. Can't forget Kiddush. For Friday nights, for Shabbat evenings. Vayehi Erev, Vayehi Voker, Yom HaShishi. Vayechulu Hashamayim v'haaretz, v'kol tzva'am, vayechal Elohim bayom hashvi'i, melachto asher asa, vayishbot bayom hashvi'i, mikol melachto asher asa. Vayavarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i, vayikadesh oto, Ki vo Shabbat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim la'asot. Savri, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. V'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lamikra'e kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim ki vanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta Mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha b'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen.
Now we'll begin closing out our service with Aleinu. Oops. Page. Yep. Closed my book. Page 282. Thank you. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'teit gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, Umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu noteh shamayim v'yoser haaretz umoshav yekaro bashamayim himal ushchinatu zo b'gov hei meromim Hu Eloheinu Ehenod, Emet Malkeinu Efesu Lato, Kakahatu B'Torato, V'yadat Hayom V'Hashevota, Elevavecha, Ki Adonai Hu Elohim, Bashamayim Mimal, V'al haaretz, mitachat eino. Let's continue on the top of page 285. Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever. V'nehemar v'haya Adonai Lamelech al kol haaretz. Vayom hahu, Yihyeh Adonai echad. Ushemo echad. This week we observe the following yard sites: Esther Freeman, Dave's wife, Robbie and Bruce's mother; Bernard Levine, Ethel Levine's son, Mo's brother; Frances Fish Tompkins, mother of Lawrence, sister of Jackie; Esther Uslin, Mark's mother; Harold Miller, Mark Miller's father; Esther Sacherman, Maxine's sister; Sharon Weed, wife of High, mother of Sarah and Adam; Irvin Levine, brother of Milton; Louis Maury Greenstein, Irving's uncle, brother of Harry; Lena Silverstein, Fred's mother, wife of Abram; Judge Fred Kaplan; Harry Fallon, husband of Edith, father of Aileen, Denise, and Ron; Julia Cantor Kaplan, wife of Theodore, mother of Pauline, Sam, Jean, and Nordy; Albert Rowan, Inga Field's father; Richard Weil, husband of Daphne; Jack Fish, cousin of Pauline and related to Francis and Jackie; Jackie Fish, mother of Alyssa and Michael, sister of Francis; Sarah Fish, cousin of Pauline; Murray Klein, Mitch Klein's father; Irvin Miller; Ella Romer, wife of Bert; Leonard S. Ross, Brant's father; Elaine Angel, wife of Abe; Sarah Herbert, Harold's mother; Rosa Levine, relative of Chuck; Hoyt Luther Williams, Hoyt Lee's father. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May their memories be a blessing to us always, and may they all rest in peace. This time, Mourner's Kaddish is found on page 294. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma Divrach Hirutei V'yamlik Malchutei B'chayechon V'yomechon Uv'chayei Dechol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala V'zman Kariv V'yimru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam L'omei Maya. Yit Barach V'yishtabach V'yit Pa'ar V'yit Ramam V'yit Naseh. V'yit Hadar V'yit Alev V'yit Halal Shmei Dekudesha Brichu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiran v'yalma v'yimru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. Oseh shalom b'romav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. All right, friends, we are at the end of services. Just a couple of quick announcements. Services tomorrow morning at 10, and then on Sunday morning at 9. Don't forget tomorrow evening, before you go to bed, to turn your clocks ahead an hour. We lose that precious hour of sleep, but we gain a lot of daylight. So, it's half a dozen of one, 6 of another, but that's Saturday night. Sunday afternoon at 3, we have a special Pesach program, a Passover program about meaning and spirituality in Pesach, especially around the Seder. So that is at 3 o'clock on Sunday. And let's see, then on Tuesday, we have, if you're a member of the COVID committee, we have a meeting on Tuesday. Wednesday is Yiddish choir at 7. You'll get the Zoom link. And Thursday, if you're a member of the Ritual and Music Committee, there's a meeting on Thursday. So lots of meetings this week. But you know what? We're moving in on Pesach. Sunday is also Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the new year for months. All right, so it's the first of the months. And that means Passover. Pesach is 2 weeks away. So if you haven't started cleaning, start now. If you've started, continue, and try not to panic. As one of my dear teachers in rabbinical school, Rabbi Benzi Bergman used to say, dirt is not chametz. Dirt is not leaven. So I'll let you think about that. Sam, did I get it all?
Yeah, you did.
All right, let's close out page 321, Adon Olam. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra liet nasa b'chefso kol azai melech shemo nikra v'acharei kichot hakol levado imloch nora vehu haya vehu hoveh vehu yeh betifara vehu echad ve'en sheni להמשילו להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה והוא אלי וחי גואלי וצור חבלי ביצרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא בידו אפקיד רוחי והייתי שן ויעירה ואם רוחי גביעתי אדוני לי ולא יירא. Let's see who says hello this week as my knees crack. Lillian Frankel, Shabbat Shalom. Well, I'm sorry, Linda Frankel, Shabbat Shalom to you. ML Glazer, wishing you a good Shabbat from Herman and Mary Lee Glazer. Well, Mary Lee and Herman, good Shabbos to you, and glad everybody's doing well. Jenny Bro, Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Back to you, Jenny. Suzanne Hart, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Murray and Suzanne, wonderful. Judy Lentz, Shabbat Shalom, right to you. Jake Singerman, Shabbat Shalom, and Mazal Tov to Sam and James on their 5th wedding anniversary. Yes, Mazal Tov. And Jake says, 2 of the finest people he knows. So wonderful. And John Rosenberg, Shabbat Shalom. Well, John, to you and Jean, Shabbat Shalom as well. All right, friends, Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos. Be safe out there, and we'll see you soon.